This is part of an ongoing series showcasing my top 20 favorite video games. Number 2, God of War Ragnarok. This was a hard placement for me because there was a point where this almost took the number 1 spot, but through a number of deciding factors, this takes home the silver medal. When I first saw the trailer for the 2018 God of War, I didn't know what to think. It had been nearly 8 years since God of War 3 had come out, and when I heard that the series was moving into the Norse pantheon, I was expecting the same loud and bombastic spectacle, just with different gods and monsters. And while some of that is still there, what I ultimately ended up getting instead was the story of a man trying to make peace with who he is and trying to be better for those around him. It's a rare situation where a long bit of time away actually works in a sequel's favor. It allowed us to actually grow up alongside Kratos. 8 years is a long time. People change. A lot. I can safely say I am not the same person I was at the start of that gap of time. So I don't know how the me back then would have reacted to such a drastic gear shift. It's quieter than the previous games, it's more subdued, more restrained. Kratos isn't constantly screaming to the heavens the way he used to be. In fact, he hardly says anything at all. But he's still able to communicate so much through that restraint. How he observes the world, how he reacts to conflict, and how every word he does choose feels weighed down by a lifetime of regret.
People, they're trying to survive too.
Close your heart to it. On our journey, we will be attacked by all manner of creature. Close your heart to their desperation. Close your heart to their suffering. Do not allow yourself to feel for them. They will not feel for you.
Even if you never played the original Greek games, you still get a sense that this is a man who's lived through unimaginable violence and unimaginable loss. A huge part of that is in no small thanks to the acting.
Leave my home.
I do have a soft spot for the original, but Chris Judge gives Kratos a gravity and humanity that the character never had before, and both he and the writers managed to do it without ever erasing who he used to be. The 2018 God of War didn't feel like a legacy sequel, it felt like the natural progression of the story. It felt like the next chapter. Despite that though, it did feel like Santa Monica Studios was keeping a lot of their cards close to the chest for this game because they weren't sure how people were going to react. But after they learned that they hadn't lost their step, they locked in and gave us one of the best sequels ever made. One of the few complaints I did have about the 2018 game is that we didn't get a lot of actual gods to fight. Which I realize was intentional and also served to help with Kratos' growth, but come on, it's still God of War. I still wanted something. So what did Ragnarok give us? It opens with a battle against a crashed out Freya, Odin shows up to casually declare war, and giving us our first real boss battle with the poster child of Norse mythology.
That was for Baldur. Now show me this god killer I've heard so much about.
And that's just in the first hour. Ragnarok makes it clear that the gloves are off this time. It's not a slow burn about whether or not the war with the gods will happen, but about what's to come when it does. While I'd love to talk about all the fantastic characters and themes that this game has, this video is already going to be super long by the time I get to editing, so I want to give a quick shout out to a YouTuber named Fatbread, who does a great job talking about all the different characters in the Norse God of War games, a lot of which I use to help compile the genome for this part of the video. But I do want to talk about one particular theme that this game explores better than almost any series I've ever seen, and that is the exploration of grief. And when I say exploring grief, I don't mean grief as a single moment or a tragic backstory, because that's not really what grief is. Grief is often something that's continuous, ongoing, corrosive, and personal. Something that doesn't resolve neatly just because the plot demands it. Freya's the most immediate example. Her whole conflict with you is rooted in her grief over Baldur's death from the last game. And even after you go through a full arc with her, after apologies, cooperations, and shared goals, she never really moves past it.
And now that you have what you seek,
I suppose this is the point where I forgive you, where I kill you.
have you decided?
to be honest. I don't think I can do either. There's still a part of me that is so angry. And it'll always be. It'll always be angry. But no. You are not the one who needs to die.
She doesn't really forgive you, she just recognizes that there's a larger enemy in front of her. We see that same idea reflected in both Thor and Sif, both of which are still mourning the loss of their sons.
This is him? Here. In our home.
Listen, Modi had some problems, but he was my son. And the only reason you aren't mush right now is because of that broken piece of wood.
Their grief manifests as shame and responsibility. They quit drinking and they try to be better for their daughter. Not because they found peace, but because they're terrified of failing again.
Can't you see what's happening? He's not protecting us. Magni, Modi, our boys. We used to tell them stories by the fire. Do you remember? We would carve those wooden horses. We would play and laugh until the sun sank and they fell asleep in our laps. They were thrown at the Allfather's problems like brittle knives to a mountain face. And for what? What if Thrud's next?
It's grief filtered through guilt. The realization that love alone isn't enough if you're not willing to change.
Mom and I are here for you. Even when you're here.
And then, of course, there's Sindri.
Please, you have to save him. You have to. He can't. You can't.
Sindri's arc might be one of the most heartbreaking ones in the entire game. He starts off as this squeamish, anxious comic relief character, someone whose shyness and germophobia gets played up for laughs, but by the end he becomes a portrait of what happens when that grief gets turned into bitterness.
I'm so sorry. No. No, I don't want to hear it. You don't know what sorry means. We're not letting Odin get away with this. Would that be the Odin you invited into my home?
We were all fooled.
But some of us were bigger fools than others, aren't we? I gave you everything. My skills, my friendship, my home, my secrets, my treasures. And you just kept taking. And now what have I got? Not even my family. You want sorry? This is what sorry looks like. What can we do? We. There is no we. There's only you. No matter what the cost. So what you can do is get the fuck out of my sight.
Come, Atreus. Leave it be. Mourn how you wish.
I thought we were his family too.
We were.
His love isn't loud or explosive like the gods, but when it's taken from him, it breaks something fundamental inside him, and the game refuses to soften that blow or offer easy reconciliation. Some relationships don't survive loss, no matter how much history they have. What makes this all work, though, is how it reflects back onto Kratos and his grief over Faye. Faye rarely gets a mention in either of the games, but even before we physically see her in Ragnarok, she still carries such a strong presence. In the beginning of the 2018 game, she's already gone. But throughout the entirety of the game, it still feels like she's there physically with you. I mean, I guess she kind of is, but you know what I mean. And despite Ragnarok taking place years after fulfilling her wishes to have her ashes scattered in Jotunheim, you can still feel her loss. Look at how Kratos looks at the bag that once carried her ashes. Look at how he carelessly throws his own blades to the side, but he gently places the axe she gave him somewhere safe. Faye was the first person who truly believed Kratos could be more than a weapon, more than a god of war.
We are not our failures. We are not who we were. We must be better.
And the tragedy is that she never gets to see what kind of man he becomes because of that belief. Every decision he makes in Ragnarok feels haunted by the question of whether or not he's honoring her or failing her.
Is our future.
The dream sequences he has with her are especially powerful because they aren't about nostalgia or comfort. Faye doesn't appear as a gentle memory to soothe him. She appears as a reminder of expectations, of his responsibility, of the future that she believed he could build. And that's a special kind of grief. Not just mourning someone you loved, but mourning the fact that they'll never get to see the version of you that they inspired. Even though Kratos saw his death prophesized at the end of the game prior, it's not the death itself that he fears. It's the idea that no matter how much he changes, he'll still continue the cycle of violence. He fears that Atreus will inherit his failings instead of his growth. And Faye's absence sharpens that fear because she was the one person who could challenge him without judgment. What Ragnarok does beautifully is show that Kratos' grief doesn't weaken him, it disciplines him. Every time he chooses mercy, every time he steps back instead of striking first, every time he lets Atreus make his own mistakes, by the end of that game, Kratos isn't defined by losing Faye, he's defined by what he does with that loss. Which juxtaposes its previous series, which was built on revenge, on rage, it makes that transformation that much more powerful.
Son, listen closely. You feel their pain because that is who you are. And you must never sacrifice that. Never. Not for anyone. I was wrong, Atreus. I was wrong. Open your heart. Open your heart to their suffering. That is your mother's wish. And mine as well. Today, son. Today, we will be better.
God of War Ragnarok is one of the best stories ever written and one of the best stories ever played. I can only think of one game that does it better.